Hello, everyone, and what a day this has been. Had breakfast in Barcelona, lunch in Iberica in Manchester, and dinner in Barcelona. One of those days. And the reason is because on Sunday I did La Liga TV and we covered some of the games of the weekend, especially good was Real Sociedad Betis. Real Sociedad were amazing, and we'll talk a little bit of that later. And we finished like midnight. And then I had to travel to Manchester to meet Robert Moreno, the Spanish national coach, who we took to the BBC for a special interview that will go on the Football Daily podcast for 5 Live in English. His first interview in English. So it was very, very fascinating about Messi and how he thinks like his matrix. Everything that happens around him happens in slow motion, but for us, it goes all very fast. And hence he is able to take even better decisions than most. It was interesting, very interesting on that. And on Sergio Ramos as well, and the important role that Sergio Ramos played in the 4 days that went from Luis Enrique saying that he was leaving the national side to Robert Moreno accepting the offer from the federation to stay on. First, let's start with Real Madrid. Not just because of the defeat against Mallorca, which certainly was a result that could have been different in the sense that Benzema, for instance, hit the bar and Real Madrid had a couple of chances more, but not very clear chances. And there was much more to worry about than be happy about from Real Madrid's point of view. Jovic, I think he touched the ball 23 times all game and none of them inside the box. This is the striker. So obviously the relationship with Benzema hasn't been working. And James and Isco were used as offensive midfielders in front of Casemiro, but they're not midfielders. And even though at some point Isco seemed to have been placed as a holding midfielder, or at least pivot, as we call it, next to Casemiro, that didn't work either. Physically, he's not at his best. He's not a midfielder, never has been. And James is always thinking forward. And sometimes as a midfielder, you have to obviously do a lot of work without the ball, but also the passes have to be passes that allow fluidity, not so much that killer pass that James likes to do. So Vinicius was the positive note, but generally this was a side that have got a lot of problems. The first one of them is represented by that Jovic-Benzema relationship. It's not working. Why? Because it's not trained properly. Because it's not a drilled team. Because changes that are made to the side are just down to the tiredness of the players or the minutes played, but not so much about a cohesion or through a cohesion that has been put in work in training. None of that. So Monday morning, there was an article in El Mundo del Siglo XXI, which is a general newspaper, but with good links to Florentino Perez on the top of Real Madrid. And the story said that if Real Madrid loses against Galatasaray, Zinedine Zidane could be sacked. It doesn't say it like that, but it's actually saying that Real Madrid will think about his future. Obviously, that's a leak from the top of Real Madrid. This same source, which is Florentino Perez, will tell different things to other people, but will send that message out there that Zidane it's been questioned by the club. Interestingly, the reaction of Zidane was like, that's football, in the press conference before the Galatasaray game, but there was a big backing of Sergio Ramos, big, huge backing, saying, Zidane is not being treated properly. And generally that people give more credit to others, not to Zidane. What others was he talking about? Well, in the El Mundo story, the suggestion is that Jose Mourinho will replace Zidane if that happens, if Zidane gets the sack. And Sergio Ramos and Mourinho, not the best of friends. This is a similar situation when everything seemed to be agreed with Conte, and Sergio Ramos kind of backed or pushed away the idea of Conte by saying, discipline is not what this team needs. So there's that battle of power between Florentino Perez, who wants to take the team one side, and Sergio Ramos, who wants to keep the status quo and the establishment as it is. But the problem is that Real Madrid have got a lot of players that should not be there, a lot of players that are not at the level of Real Madrid, and somebody's got to take those big decisions. Zidane had the opportunity to do so, and he didn't. So let's see what happens in midweek. Barcelona top of the table in La Liga for the first time since the beginning of the season, I think since week 1. And a lot of it is down to a team that is adjusting. All the problems that we mentioned in the past seem to be getting resolved. And a lot of it has to do with two things, mostly. One, the fact that the three main men up front, Griezmann, Luis Suarez, and Messi, played for the second time together, and it showed. They started to understand each other more. Luis Suarez is a number 9, but he knows that Griezmann likes to come inside, so he's got to go in wide areas, and everybody's got to adjust to Messi. Griezmann knows as well that when the team defends, he converts that 4-3-3 in which they attack to a 4-4-2, and he's got to work very hard, especially in the right-hand side, in the space that's left by Messi, that doesn't defend so much, neither does Luis Suarez. So, all in all, that seems to be working better. Synergy is being created. Everybody likes everybody, and the three of them scored. The other reason why it worked is De Jong, Frankie De Jong. He was absolutely superb, but superb because he did a lot of jobs, and all of them very well. Not only he was played in front of Busquets, in between the lines, always wanting to receive the ball. Sometimes he dropped deep as well. And about more than half of the passes that he gave were vertical passes, passes in front of him. Not just that, but in counterattacks, and after giving that forward pass, he will run to be part of the attack as well. So even if there was a good transition and Eibar's high defensive line allowed, because there was a lot of space in behind, allowed those counterattacks from Barcelona. That's what they tried to do, and it worked very well for them. De Jong was part of that, and was also part, if Barcelona lost the ball, in trying to recover in it. He used a lot of space. The thing that perhaps people are not noticing much is that it doesn't suit very much the positional game of Barcelona, if you like, because he's everywhere. You don't know where he is. And Barcelona tends to like, the Barcelona of the past, the positional Barcelona, tends to like everybody to know where the roles are and to have a position for them to use, for the players to use. With De Jong, it's a different story. You start to see more of De Jong, like the De Jong of Holland or the De Jong of Ajax, in that he's very mobile and he gives this youthfulness to the side that was absolutely needed. That means that Barcelona won't be perhaps so much a passing side, it'll be more vertical, but at the same time, they have the ability to create when teams defend very deep. It wasn't the case of Eibar. Barcelona won 3-0. It was mostly with quick transitions. They're able to do that. The problem I still see is that they don't have the intensity of Liverpool, if you like. They won't get there either. So we will have to see how, when those teams and those games arrive, how they approach that. In fact, we could have seen it with the Clásico, but there's no Clásico. And that's the next point that I want to discuss with you. What I mean, there is no Clásico. It won't happen on the 26th of October when was planned. Despite the fact that Ernesto Valverde, the manager of Barcelona, says it would have been a good show of directness and leadership and of what Catalans are made of if we actually had played the Clásico on the 26th of October. But it hasn't happened because reports from security services suggesting that basically they cannot see the police and the Mossos, the Catalan police, they cannot see how they can control or guarantee the safety of fans and everybody else when there's still incidents happening in the streets. It's all calmed down. We are today in the 8th day of people going to the streets, but it's all calmed down a lot. And my worry or my understanding of the situation is that at the moment we don't have a date for it. By the way, the competition committee wants Barcelona and Real Madrid to agree a date, which they have done, the 18th of December, but want to show reports that security reports that the competition committee have got to actually take a final decision, the clubs themselves. La Liga would like to be moved to the 4th or the 7th of December. The clubs want the 18th of December. La Liga would prefer a Saturday. All that has to be sorted. But why has not been played on the 26th of October? As I said, there was fears for the security of fans, and that's total priority. I think La Liga gave the first step in this direction of moving the game, swapping it with the Bernabeu, which the club said no chance, because I think there is the fear that that game can be used to put political stance in front of everybody's eyes, the world's eyes. Even if the game is on the 4th or the 7th or the 18th, that will happen anyway. But I think La Liga was trying to stop that in the middle of this climatic situation that's happening in the streets. So there's a political stand behind the decision to move the Clásico. When I feel that, as I said, basically the Clásico will still be used by those that think that independence is the next step for Catalonia. It will be used, taking advantage of the whole world watching. In any case, I know a lot of people say you cannot mix sports and politics, but politics is what's around us. Every decision we take is a political one. It's not just voting, but how we live our lives. There's politics behind it. Are we generous with our neighbors? Do we want to protect others? Do we want to help others? Do we think that there is no justice in the world? And what are we doing about it? All those are political decisions. How can you separate sport from all that? It's impossible to do it. And when you sense that the politics have reached the streets, it's very difficult to take that away from sport. Next, we have to talk about a couple of games, or teams even better than games. Real Sociedad did so well against Betis. What a fantastic team Real Sociedad is. And we are analysing that in detail in La Liga TV often enough. It's not just how they pressure the opponent high up, it's how they do it in a very organised way, not leaving many options to the man on the ball, apart from kicking it long. And then when they recover the ball, what happens? Everybody switched on. So everybody runs in behind and runs into the space, runs to receive the ball. Everybody's alerted. It's wonderful to see. And of course, there's a lot of quality in those decisions, with and without the ball. Without the ball comes down to training. With the ball, it's a lot to do with the quality of the players like Oyarzabal and Odegaard and Mikel Merino, who was fantastic against Betis. So, Imanol Alguacil, chapeau, as we say in Spanish, brilliant work that you're doing. And Real Sociedad is one of the most enjoyable teams that you can watch right now in European football. Unlike Atletico Madrid, yet again, draw points. Valencia could have actually won at the end. This was at the Wanda Metropolitano. And it had to do with Atletico Madrid advancing, going first ahead. But then just mentally, I'm sure that Simeone is not asking that, but dropping and dropping and dropping until they get attacked. They think that they can absorb pressure, nothing will happen to them. But yet again, they conceded a goal, which makes this Atletico Madrid under Simeone, the worst Atletico Madrid, equal to last season, actually, at this stage of the season, even though they started with 3 victories. Right now is the worst Atletico Madrid under Simeone. And they're not scoring goals. I think it's only 8 goals in 9 games. Costa, Morata not working together. Joao Felix now out for 2 or 3 weeks. It's about the collective. It doesn't seem to function, especially offensively, but they also concede. So things will have to be sorted in that department. A lot has been said about Manchester United and Liverpool, but I'll add my little bit. I just feel that quite clearly, Solskjaer for the first hour got the tactics spot on, held by the fact that Salah was not there. Because if these same tactics had been used with Salah there, I think we would have seen a different game. Because Salah is the one who creates out of nothing. He doesn't need much space to actually make a diagonal and shoot and score. And Liverpool didn't have that. There was a tension in the way that Liverpool played. They struggle. I know that they played against teams that defend deeply, but with the 3 centre-backs and the 2 holding midfielders and a very compact centre of the park for Manchester United, you need to have a conscious effort, a worked effort, a drilled effort to open up that kind of defence. And Liverpool don't have that. They use a lot of, their key, of course, is how they use the spaces when it's in front of them. When teams are very, very compact, we've seen it against others, I think, this season. They have the difficulty to open them up if Salah is not there. The full-backs, if you stop having them space, it's difficult for them, for any full-back in the world, of course, to create any chances. And, the rest, the way that Manchester United attacked, obviously with expecting the ball in wide areas, in behind of the full-backs, they were always going to have the opportunity to score. I won't get into the VAR. I think I've spoken enough about VAR in the past. You know, if you follow me, that I just think that it complicates a game that should be much simpler. But anyway, going back to the game, quite clearly, it's impossible, I would say, for Liverpool to improve on how to attack those kind of defences, because right now and until the end of the season, there's a game every 3 days. So it's about reinforcing essentials, and the essentials here is high tempo, intensity, recovery of the ball, and go again and go again and go again. For the kind of, to perhaps a new phase for Liverpool in next season maybe, will be to actually give more layers to the team to be able to beat those defenses. But as the season is going, it's difficult to change that. And they will find themselves in those positions where they don't find solutions unless Salah is there. Or in other occasions, if other teams use the same tactics. Obviously, everything has to go in your favour because it was a 1-1 result. Liverpool could have had an extra chance, and then many people will be talking about the same, but I still see that difficulty in Liverpool in games like this. Not much to complain. Top of the table and still well ahead. So it is just adjusting a team that is not perfect, but can be done perfect, I think, if you add that to Liverpool. That's it. I think I'll let you comment on it. As always, I'll have a read of what you say, and we will be talking next week. Bye.